Hi there, this is Chris from MoneyHub, and this video looks at the best travel money options for New Zealanders traveling to Australia. So it's a very popular place year round, of course. There's flights every day, multiple flights every day between New Zealand and Australia. We've put together this guide because we know people are paying 2 to 3% to their banks, possibly paying more through foreign exchange currency kiosks, and just generally overpaying for Australia when they don't need to. So we've published a guide here with all the options compared, and we keep this up to date very regularly, and also it's comprehensive so that we can be sure what the best options are. The point of this video is for me to just summarize it or summarize the guide, and I'll take you through that now. So just as a background, the official currency is the Australian dollar, and most people pay by cards. That's really, really important to know because Australia is moving cashless. I was there recently. Got told, actually I didn't get told, sorry, someone in front of me got told, sorry, we don't take cash. This is a cashless store, and it wasn't something fancy. It was an everyday, I think it was an ice cream store, and that was it. So things are moving that way, which is why it's important if you are forced to pay by card, which is quite safe and quite a good idea. It's good to have the best value card so that you're not giving the bank a percentage of your money when you travel. Generally, the exchange rate moves from 0.85 to 0.95. We've never reached parity with the Australian dollar, or certainly in recent time we got very close to it, but now it's come back and it's around 0.85 to 95. That will change on the day, of course, that you travel. And as the New Zealand dollar weakens, of course, a trip to Australia becomes more expensive. And many New Zealanders will prepay trips, will prepay their flights, their hotels, Airbnb, car rental, etc. But there's a lot of costs that are on the ground, which we want to try and minimize the cost of, and make sure you've got the right foreign exchange tool. So what this does, this guide summarizes using cash and then using debit and credit cards that are issued by New Zealand banks or similar, and then using a travel money card. We've got some must-know facts, and then some conversion spending Australian dollar frequently asked questions. So straight up into it, using cash in Australia, what I'll say is that many people like to fly into Australia with money in their pocket. That's Australian dollars. That makes complete sense. What we will say is that the rates that you're offered vary considerably. So if I just go straight into the first one, most popular, you'll see Travelex quite widely displayed on a variety of airports. You'll see the kiosks around here that we can see, and of course these are being priced at today's rates, which is the 2nd of October 2023. But we're doing all the comparisons at the same time, so you can see the difference in the rates offered by the different Forex companies. Here you can see it's around 0.8988. That's what you'll get. So if you transferred, if you wanted to buy $1,000 New Zealand worth of Australian, then you'd get 898.80 in Australian dollars cash. How does that compare with other options? So the 898 compares pretty much a cent lower. Pretty much a point of a cent lower than what a number one currency provides. So it's around 0.9 there, and it's around 0.9 there as well. But if we compare that to Westpac, then Westpac, if you are a Westpac customer, they will give you Australian dollars at a rate of 0.9166, which is much higher. So already you're getting about 1.5% more for your money just by going with Westpac. But then if we use something like Wise, then you can see the rate's even higher. It's 0.93. So 0.933 is higher than 0.916, which is higher than 0.8988. These are all examples. Of course, there's a small fee, which is the 0.44%, which comes off, which is actually, applied to the exchange rate. So the rate tends to be about 93 cents in this case, or 9296. Whereas, as I said, with the other ones, it's a little bit lower than that. So they're offering about 1.5% more than Westpac's offering, which is offering about 1.5% more than Travelex's number one currencies is going to offer as well. So that's good to be aware of. And I'm just going to go straight back into the guide just to sort of carry on, but I just wanted to point that out. So if you are going to do it and you want to get cash, what we do suggest is withdrawing it when you get there. A lot of banks now, because they're owned by Australians, will give you free ATM fees. Kiwi Bank won't. You'll pay $6 for that. And of course, Westpac, has its own network of ATM affiliated ones. So if you use non-affiliated, you will pay. But there's a variety of options there. So we've got a guide to that, which we've linked in. Check what your bank charges, and then just be aware that if you do have to withdraw money, then you'll get either the MasterCard rate or you'll get the rate from Visa. You can see that these are applied at the wholesale rate before the banks charge their fees. So this is the MasterCard rate here. It's about 0.93, and the Visa rate is about 0.927. So they're within range of the Wise rate, which of course is the best rate. But this is subject to the bank fee. We've put 0 on there. Of course, the banks will take their cut on the percentage that they get, and also there could be an internal rate, like application of a fee there, even before you're charged the bank Forex fee. So be aware that these rates are sort of useful, and it shows that a MasterCard pre-bank fee offers slightly better than Visa. But at the same time, this isn't something that, most people traveling to Australia and shopping or whatever will look at. It really is coming down to like Wise's rate versus what your bank will charge you. That we don't know until they actually charge you. But from what we understand from our research, it's always higher than what Wise will charge, just because because the banks charge more for their fees. So getting back to it, if you want to get cash out, then there's ATMs at all the arrival concourses when you get to Australia. So be aware that you'll be able to stick your card in pretty quickly and get some Australian dollars. You'll pay a fee for that if your bank charges you. Otherwise, if it's an Australian bank, usually it's quite a good deal. You won't. And we just say that people should avoid Forex booths because they're not going to give great exchange rates. If you take New Zealand dollars to Australia and try and change them at, say, Sydney Airport, Melbourne Airport, then you might even be offered a lower rate, and you probably will be than the ones that we've just taken you through on Travelex, just because the rates at the kiosks are lower than the rates usually that you'll see online when you're pre-buying currency. So using cash, pros, it's got universal acceptance. We say that with the caveat of the fact that it's moving towards coming cashless, and so it will be accepted, but some shops will refuse it if they've changed their policy. And of course, there's no risk with cash of being declined or having any card issues. That's all fine. Australia, largely safe, but no one likes to walk around with lots of cash, so just manage that one. And then for airport exchange, whereas this is the con that I previously just discussed, is just paying too much for the exchange rate, and you're just getting a poor exchange rate and fees on top maybe, and it's just not a very satisfying experience. So we suggest using the ATMs that you see all around Australia to get your Australian dollars, because it's just a cheaper way to do it for most people. And if you have spare Australian dollars, what can you do? Of course, you can just use them as a part payment towards the end of the trip or on the last day. You can convert them back to New Zealand dollars, but the problem with doing that, I'll just show you this example here. So click and sell is what you'd do if you were selling Australian dollars back to New Zealand dollars. You can see that the rate jumps up to almost sort of parity, so 0.9944. And that means that if you had, say, $100 of Australian, you'd get out back around 100 New Zealand dollars and 50 cents, where you should get around $110 if it was proper market rates. So that's why we think it's best just to use them, put them towards a final bill and part pay. No one will refuse you to do that, and it's a good way to use them all up. With regards to your second option of travel money in Australia, using a debit and credit cards, that's fine. You will be charged a fee for doing so. Some banks charge as low as 0% foreign exchange fees, well, actually their foreign exchange fee, and then nothing more. Some charge up to 3.5%, so just be aware, some cards charge up to 3.5%, so just be aware that that can be a problem. And if you are using, for example, the ANZ debit Visa or credit card, then they've dropped the fee at time of writing, which is October 2023, at the time of this video, to 1.3%. But you can see that's still a lot higher. It's 3 times as high as the Wise debit card. So just be aware it's not that cheap, even though it looks like a lower fee compared to the likes of, say, Kiwi Bank, which will charge you 2.5. So I put together some resources just to have a read of there. But of course, pros and cons for using your New Zealand card is that you don't need a new card. It's good to go if it's loaded up with a balance in your debit account, in your current account, then that's great. You can track everything, which is also very useful. But the problem is that the fees can be high, and debit cards can attract a higher exchange fee or just a conversion fee than credit cards, which we still don't understand why, but that seems to be the situation. And at the same time, you might be asked about, would you like to pay, for example, a bill in New Zealand dollars? This will come up on a machine that you use. It's called dynamic currency conversion. It should be outlawed, to be honest. It has no purpose other than just ripping people off. And so what you'll see there is would you like to transact, say you spend $100 at a shop and you think, I might want to actually pay for that in New Zealand dollars. But what they don't tell you, if it's not very clear, is that you'll pay 5, 6, 7, 8% foreign exchange margin just for doing that. So we think that's pretty pointless and has no benefit whatsoever because your bank will convert it all the same. So there's no point to do it. And then potential card issues, there's always a risk, usually lower risk, that your card's swallowed or it's declined or skimmed or anything like that. So always have a backup. So we like the fact that, cards are widely accepted throughout Australia. Of course they would be, but we don't like the fact that the banks are getting quite greedy with charging the fees. So just be aware that they will charge you in most cases, and the fees can certainly add up. Finally, the travel money card. So we're a big fan of the Wise debit card as a travel money card. The reason that is that you can prepay for Australian dollars. It's got the best rates from all the research that we did. And then lastly, it's very secure. It's got an app which lets you track everything. You can also use it on the web browser. So you're well protected for everything. Should you be making a transaction online, it's going to ask for you to approve it. Obviously, it's not going to ask you if you're out on the street or out in person. But it is good for online purchases as well. We've done a comprehensive guide to the best travel money cards, and I suggest having a read through that. We don't see so we don't see any other card, for example, Travelix or Cash Passport or anything like that. The One Smart card to be a second best. We see Wise and then the rest. And the reason is just because of the fees and the features. So we constantly strive to make sure that the travel money section is completely as comprehensive as it can possibly be. And the reason is because we want people to save as much money as they can when they go on holiday. And so far, the Wise has been a very popular option. Now, just moving on, you'll find that Wise is going to charge you, as I said, a small fee. It usually jumps between 0.44% and 0.47%, nothing too crazy. And it's very, very transparent in how they charge you. You can use a Wise card wherever. You can use a Visa or MasterCard, which is great. And it uses the real exchange rate. So there's no tricks. There's no mystery here. It's not like a bank, which won't tell you what it cost before you made the payment. With Wise, it's constantly giving you exchange rate through the app, and so you can see what you'll pay before you actually pay it. And There's instant notifications there as well, and it'll show up to help you keep track. You will pay an ATM fee. So after $350 New Zealand per month, which is around 320 Australian, then you'll sadly be charged about 1.75%. But for most people traveling to Australia, they probably shouldn't need so much money in physical cash. So the Wise just acts as a good basis for using the card in person for all the tapping and a chip and pin. And then if you do need cash, then it's great because it's a low fee touch point to get that cash out. Now, with regards to must know tips, this is some interesting things that people may not be aware of. Sunday surcharge, increasingly popular. Of course, we have public holiday surcharges in New Zealand, but the Sunday surcharge is a big problem because you can pay 10 to 15% more just for going out on a Sunday. So be aware if you see signs about that. That is what that means. There are still, places which accept cash. So whilst it is moving cashless, people will still take cash, which is great, which is why it's always useful to have. And that we really want to say that stores in Australia have their own returns policy. So if you are, traveling around and shopping for stuff, don't just assume it's going to follow the New Zealand policy, even if it's the same store or the same chain. That's kind of crazy, but that is true. So just be aware they'll have their own rules. Make sure that you're aware of them before making a purchase. And then some frequently asked questions about converting and spending Australian dollars. So what is the usual exchange rate? It's usually around, as I previously said, about 0.85 to 0.99. It's gone as high as I said 0.99, but usually it's hovering around 0.9. In the last couple of years. Can you use a travel money card, New Zealand debit card or credit card pretty much everywhere? And the answer is yes. Very few places are card only in Australia now. And you can use also Apple Pay, Google Pay, and cash too. And then a question that people ask us, is it expensive for tourists? Usually it's on par with New Zealand. Some things cheaper, some things more expensive. Of course, hotels can be a lot more expensive, and because the range is certainly wider. So just be aware. And also there's lots of sporting events which can surge demand and force up prices too. And then what's the best way to get the most Australian dollar for your New Zealand dollar? Services like Wise, clearly leading edge there. The worst way is just changing it at one of these Forex kiosks, where even if you pre-order, you're still going to be charged a lot. Whereas it's much better to go through and get the money once you get to Australia. And then just concluding there, what are the best options? Well, you can use a combination of all three, of course. Have some cash that you get out. Use your bank card for the prepaid expenses. There'll be a lot of things like hotels, credit cards, etc. And then the Wise debit card, which is our leading travel money card. That's very useful just to get the best possible rates and the most transparency. But you also have to consider it if you're only going away for 3 or 4 days. Do you want to be using another card, or are you happy just to pay the bank fees? So that's something worth considering, of course, before you fly off. But that's pretty much the guide's summary there. If you do have any questions, please let us know. You can leave comments down in the comment section. We're highly responsive to those, and we want our resources and our videos to be as comprehensive as possible. So it's really helpful when people ask questions. So thanks very much for watching. And if you're going to Australia soon, then please have a lovely time, and don't hesitate to ask any questions below. Thanks.